Reagan tightens economic sanctions against Libya. I'm Skip Loescher in Washington. We'll detail Mr. Reagan's remarks and get reaction live from Minnesota Congressman Martin Sabo.
And from the Twin Cities tonight, the story of a tragedy that lingers.
We'll tell you about a program to help friends and relatives of the Reno crash victims almost a year after the tragedy.
If your house were burning, would you have to be forced to leave it? This man had to be today in Minneapolis.
And a farm foreclosure sale brings friends who want to help and others who are willing to buy out a farmer's business.
The 10 p.m. report is coming up next.
Everyone knows Vandy Camps has a line on fresh-tasting fish. With our light fillets, our breaded and batter-dipped fish, and today's catch fillets. They all taste fresh because they're frozen fresh, and you'll taste it in every bite once you catch them.
Did you get Vandy Camps fish?
I think they're getting tired. Vandy Camps, the freshest ideas in frozen fish.
We're waiting for you to speak on this program today.
The sailor today in the United States Navy is a more sophisticated sailor.
And he's not interested in any hookers. Would you rather be ugly and bright or beautiful and stupid?
I'd rather be beautiful and damn stupid. Because that's the name of the game.
Join us for Donahue
on WCCO television. You are watching WCCO television, Minneapolis, St. Paul. This is the 10 p.m. report.
Good evening, everyone. The war of words between the U.S. and Libya has escalated into an economic battle.
And the weapon is a familiar one. The U.S. is imposing an economic boycott on Libya. It's in retaliation for terrorist attacks on airports in Rome and Vienna, attacks that President Reagan blames on Libyan leader Muammar Gaddafi for training terrorists in his country. Tonight, President Reagan said Gaddafi must pay a price, and he ordered a series of steps to cut off all trade with Libya. Those steps include a ban on exports and imports from Libya, an end to all air and sea relations, the cutoff of credit and loans, and a ban on all commercial transactions by corporations and American citizens. The order will require all Americans in Libya to leave.
And as Skip Loescher reports from Washington, President Reagan said he hopes our allies will now follow suit. Skip?
Pat, the president is in something of a predicament. U.S. trade with Libya now amounts to about $300 million a year, a drop in the bucket compared to that of each of our European allies, who are expressing no willingness to cut off their trade with Libya. So the president's remarks tonight may have been designed to put some pressure on them. The president says we have proof that Libya trains the terrorist group which attacked the Rome and Vienna airports, something none of our allies is claiming.
We know the location of training camps for terrorists, and we also know that Abu Nadal has more or less moved his headquarters there into Libya.
Mr. Reagan called Libyan leader Gaddafi a barbarian and a flake, and he continues to hold a thin threat of military action against him.
If these steps do not end Gaddafi's terrorism, I promise you that further steps will be taken.
And the president throws out a brand new figure.
We have actually recorded in the last year and know that we have aborted 126 terrorist missions.
While they weren't all in this country, Mr. Reagan says he takes seriously the Gaddafi threat to stage suicide attacks in Washington, D.C. And he adds,
I wish he was planning to do that himself. I'd be happy to welcome him.
Congressman Martin Sabo, did the president say anything that will scare Gaddafi?
I don't think so. I think our history is that unilateral boycotts by us have very little impact on other countries. Unless he can convince our allies to go along with our boycott, it will have very little economic impact on Libya.
There's no sign he's going to be able to do that.
No indication. And however, if the president is right and we have the evidence that he suggests we have, I think he should present it to our European allies and pressure them very hard to join us in the economic boycott.
Military action, not under any circumstances?
Well, I don't know if you ever say never, but I think very unlikely. It'd be very difficult to make it precise. If we did it, it would have to be very surgical, and that would be very difficult to do with the amount of military equipment the Libyans have.
Congressman, thank you very much for coming in after 11 o'clock at night to join us. Pat?
Thank you, Skip. Thanks to you both. A spokesman for the PLO said today there is no evidence that Gaddafi supports terrorists. And speaking via satellite, Hassan Rahman told Colleen Needles today that the president's threat of retaliation is alienating the Arab world.
And the Arabs are fed up with United States identification with Israeli policies against the Arabs.
Hassan also said that despite poor relations, Americans are still safe in the Middle East.
2 people are dead tonight after a mid-air collision between 2 fighter jets in Germany. One of the victims was in an apartment building on the ground. The other was a pilot of one of the Air Force F-15 fighter jets that were involved in the collision. 4 other people on the ground were also hurt in the incident. It is not clear yet why those Air Force jets collided. No injuries, but a frightening few moments on board a cargo plane that made an emergency landing at Greensboro International Regional Airport yesterday. The landing gear of the plane jammed, forcing the pilot to burn up his fuel before bringing it in for a belly landing. While rescuers stood by, the plane slowly came to a halt amid a shower of sparks. 1 year ago this month, the very same pilot had to perform the same emergency landing with this same plane.
The plane crash that we in the Twin Cities know so well is nearing its 1-year anniversary. The Reno crash happened January 21st last year. Friends and relatives of the victims still are having troubles with the memories of that crash, but they are getting some help in a support group that Tony Vigneri tells us about.
23-year-old Tammy Morris of Roseville was an aspiring figure skater, but her hopes, her dreams, and her life died in Reno, along with 70 others 1 year ago this month. As the January 22nd anniversary approaches, Tammy's family still feels the grief.
Well, you have good days and you have bad. Some days you feel like you've worked your way through it and you're doing fine, and then something like that crash comes up and then you relive all that terror and misery over.
Suzette Morris says just hearing about other plane crashes brings back memories of her daughter. Things like that, she says, are hard, not only on her, but the whole family, her husband and 10 other children.
We waited 8 months for her personal belongings to come, and when they arrived, 2 of the things weren't even hers. They were some man's credit card, and another one was from the stewardess of the airlines. So those little things make it really tough on a family.
Scores of others who lost loved ones in Reno may be experiencing similar problems, especially as the anniversary of the crash approaches. And Tony Del Percio, a grief counselor in St. Paul, wants to gather them together to build a support group.
And it's a source of comfort for individuals to find out that I'm not alone, that the person next to me or the person over there are feeling the same things as we are. So it's real beneficial, we're finding, when we can bring groups together.
Del Percio says the scars will always be there for those who lost a friend or a relative in the crash. But he hopes that through a sharing of the pain can be lessened. Tony Vigneri, WCCO Television News.
Some of the streets of San Francisco were flowing with burning gas today. A tanker truck carrying 8,000 gallons of gasoline turned over on a highway near San Francisco Airport, sending burning fuel all over the nearby road. The heat was so intense that steel highway dividers melted. Some of the pavement buckled. The driver says he blacked out just before the crash. The next thing he knew, he said he was being rescued. The truck driver wound up with only minor injuries, and no one else was injured.
A 2-alarm fire in South Minneapolis had firefighters battling freezing temperatures and flames early this afternoon. It took firefighters about an hour to put out the blaze, which destroyed Albert Whitney's duplex at 5600 Wentworth Avenue South. And police and paramedics had their hands full trying to move Whitney to safety.
Well, when I looked out the window, his wife went up to the door and tried to pull him out. He pushed her away and shut the door on her. A couple times that happened. And then when the cops came, it took 3 of them to push the door open because he was holding it shut. And then 4 of them about to pull him out of the house. He was struggling like mad just to try to stay in the house.
Neighbors say they saw flames shooting through the roof of the 2-story building. One firefighter was slightly injured during that blaze. He was treated at Hennepin County Medical Center. Not a day that you'd want to have to fight a fire or do much else of anything outside. But there is some hope. We were definitely locked in the deep freeze last night with temperatures dropping to 15 below zero. The thaw developed today, and it appears it will keep on thawing. Temperatures tomorrow in the Twin Cities will reach 20 degrees, a veritable heat wave. And Mike Fairborn will have full details for us just a bit later. And ahead on the 10 p.m. report, another shakeup in the Reagan cabinet.
Is there a link between breast cancer and the water in St. Louis Park? Well, a new study says no. Also ahead, how the shouts of farmers didn't help today.
Lose weight, gain weight. Get off the yo-yo with Dining Light frozen entrees. Less than 300 calories each. Guard against gaining with Dining Light.
Today's investment landscape can overwhelm even seasoned investors. There are any number of risks you can take to reach your financial goals, or you can rely on the First Trust. With the First Trust, insured investments pay you high current income. Income you keep because it's tax-free. So when others offer high risk, the First Trust guarantees performance with safety and reliability.
Experience you can trust.
The First Trust delivers. Ask for details.
Last year, car makers spent over $1 billion in advertising just to tell you how wonderful their cars are. Fortunately, there is a more objective opinion, car owners. According to a recent survey of all the cars in America, import or domestic, now, for the second year in a row, car owners rated Subaru second only to Mercedes-Benz in customer satisfaction. And that's the kind of advertising money can't buy. Subaru, inexpensive and built to stay that way.
If you live in one of two Twin Cities suburbs, you know what it's like to be haunted by questions about whether your water is safe.
Those suburbs are St. Louis Park and New Brighton, both of which had concerns over possible cancer-causing agents in the water there. The possible cause in New Brighton, an Army ammunition dump. The possible cause in St. Louis Park, the Riley Tar and Chemical Company. Both were blamed for polluting underground wells. The episode in St. Louis Park led to a scientific study which looked into a possible link between increased breast cancer around 1970 and contaminated water. The State Health Department now says there is no proof of a scientific link in either the St. Louis Park or New Brighton cases. And Terry Sater joins us now with more on that story. Terry?
Pat, we should mention that the contaminated wells in those two suburbs were shut down by 1981, but it wasn't until now that a 300-page study came out. This lengthy booklet is just a summation of what the scientists found.
The study says the cancer-causing agents found in the contaminated St. Louis Park wells do not cause breast cancer in lab animals. But epidemiologist Alan Bender says what's most important is what the study can't say.
Science's ability to detect human health effects at these levels of exposures and to document them, whether they did or did not occur in these settings, is impossible.
Bender says scientists cannot prove whether there is a link between the contaminated water and increased breast cancer in women. But the study also says it isn't likely that the breast cancers were caused by water contaminants. The same is true for similar fears raised in New Brighton.
So there's a variety of reasons why it's extremely unlikely that any health effects would be observed today. Extremely unlikely. We can't rule any out, of course.
Bender says the major causes of breast cancer are reproductive behaviors, like breastfeeding, and also genetics.
If there was a serious problem, the type you're alluding to, the clinicians would be telling us that something's happening. The physicians would say, we're seeing just way too much breast cancer than we should have.
But Bender says just because doctors can't link the contaminated water to cancer doesn't mean the well shouldn't have been shut down. He says there's no reason to take chances. Pat, one of the things he said is very important, the results of this study, is the state should set up a statewide monitoring system. 30 other states have that system in place. And instead of coming in and doing these studies from time to time, where it's very tough for the scientists to find out anything, the statewide monitoring system would keep track of it over a period of years more completely.
Well, is there a move now to do that?
He is pushing for that.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Terry. Today, cries of despair and protest echoed on one Minnesota farm.
No sale! No sale! No sale! No sale! No sale! Pay attention here! The kid...
35-year-old Steve Strazel's farm equipment was repossessed and auctioned off today. His friends tried to block the sale of machinery which he needs and wanted to bid on, but the Redwood Falls farmer was not able to buy back any of the tools. Other people showed up, they bought everything, but Strazel still wants to make a go of it.
Somebody over there is bidding.
I love it. I'm not sure I could start another lifestyle.
When today's auction was over, 25 pieces of his farm machinery were sold. Machinery he says he'll need this coming spring to plant his crops.
Well, it's been a rough time for American farmers. It's also been a rough time for the man in charge of keeping the U.S. farm economy afloat. And today that man stepped down. We return now to Washington for Skip Loescher and more on that story. Skip?
Mike Block, John Block, that is, says he regrets that so many farmers have been forced out of business, but he believes things are getting better for agriculture.
I do believe we're starting to turn the corner. We'll see better times ahead.
Block will remain on the job until sometime next month. And what will he do then?
I want to get the Farm Bill done and look to new, exciting opportunities in the private sector.
Block is not speculating on a possible successor, and President Reagan is not saying much either.
I certainly am going to want someone, just as Jack was, who has all the experience that is necessary in that field, and yes, it would be fine if we come up with a working farmer.
But a Minnesotan who sits on the House Agriculture Committee has a suggestion.
Former Governor Ray of Iowa certainly would be a good choice, simply because anyone from Iowa must understand the severity of this crisis.
But a host of other names are also being bandied about, and Penny says some of them would be worse for Midwestern farmers than John Block has been. Mike?
All right, thank you very much, Skip. 3 people we want to tell you about tonight. The U.S. Postal Service has a new Postmaster General. Albert Casey was named to that post today in Washington. He used to run American Airlines and says he'll try to run the post office more like a private corporation. Casey replaces Paul Carlin, who was fired for failing to keep costs down. Last year, the post office posted losses of $250 million. Meanwhile, in a Ramsey County court this afternoon, a former St. Paul police officer was sentenced in a drug case. Calvin Ross pleaded guilty last summer and was told today he must perform 100 hours of community service and attend Alcoholics Anonymous. He was fired from the department last year. And in the nation's capital tonight, a 23-year-old University of Minnesota senior is eating for the first time in 25 days. Lisa Paul has been protesting the Soviet government's refusal to let her Russian friend travel to the West for cancer treatment. The Russian studies student met the Soviet woman in Moscow 2 years ago. Lisa Paul ended her hunger strike today, 20 pounds lighter than when she began it.
Well, the big topic, of course, is the cold weather, and Mike says it's going to go away.
It is, slowly. We are the coldest in the state, right here in Minneapolis and St. Paul right now. Warmer air, though, is moving in. Our temperature should start to rise, and I'll tell you about it in just a minute.
Still ahead on the 10 p.m. report, a Twin Cities problem that's growing deeper and deeper.
This winter, we seem to be raising a bumper crop that nobody likes. We're talking potholes.
When Best Buy Company's West St. Paul store got too small, we opened a big new store just down the street. But now that store is too small, so we're moving back up the street to an even bigger superstore. So, at Best Buy Company's grand reopening sale, you can save on name brand stereos, televisions, appliances, and more. Look for this grand reopening ad, then come to Best Buy Company. The prices are good at every store, but you better hurry. Everything's moving out fast.
WCCO with the school closings, the traffic, the weather. And if that isn't bad enough, wait till you hear this Boot Erickson's worst joke.
WCCO Radio News. This is Dick Chapman. Some rather good economic.
And those Gopher 7-footers were all over that basket.
There's another storm front building, so look for more snow in CCO land.
All right, gang, this is Cannon with a little traveling.
Real radio.
Welcome to the real world.
WCCO.
When you switch to Eradicane to save money over Dual or Lasso, you won't take a chance on performance. Eradicane gives excellent control of foxtails and other grasses and puts it in writing with one of the strongest guarantees around. Apply Eradicane right, and if it doesn't work, you'll get a rescue treatment at no charge. Ask your dealer about the Eradicane guarantee. Then ask to see the Dual or Lasso guarantee. You can't lose when you switch and save with Eradicane.
He's right, you know.
Switch and save with Eradicane.
Exciting prizes for exciting people.
Everything's going to be all right, Jacqueline.
If the price is right.
I'm going to go for it.
Weekdays on Channel 4.
Travel by truck, shuttle, or car proved to be treacherous in different parts of the United States today, and weather was a factor in all three. In California, the Santa Ana winds were so gusty that a number of trucks were blown right off the road. One driver died. Many other motorists were hindered by poor visibility. The Space Shuttle Columbia logged a record 4th postponement today when rain clouds moved into the area. Not only did the rain in Florida cause problems, but so did rain in Spain, an alternative landing site. NASA will try again Thursday morning. And in our area, early snows and bitter cold have already produced a bumper crop of potholes. Officials of the Minnesota Department of Transportation are already warning that this could be one of the worst years for potholes the state has ever endured. Crews were out today trying to patch up some of the bad spots, but really only spring and a major rebuilding of the highway can solve this problem.
And we thought the sane lane was it.
Right.
You know, this is one of those days when the telephone rings and you hear from all these people from out of town.
Yes.
Because they've seen the weather in Minnesota and they want to call.
I'll tell you, you left one thing out, though, Mike, when you were reviewing all the weather around the country. Texas. We're turning Texas into an outdoor skating rink tonight. Freezing rain, snow. It's just a mess down there.
Maybe we should call them, huh?
We should call them. If you got any relatives in Texas, call them. Tell them how great the weather is up here. We have had quite a bit of weather around the country. By the way, those Santa Ana winds down in California gusting as high as 100 miles an hour this afternoon. That makes driving impossible. Right now, as we said, we're the coldest location in the state with 12 below here in Minnesota. Actually warmer in International Falls than it is here in Minneapolis, although they started out with a lower temperature early this morning, and temperatures actually above zero out in the western part of the state. That's the warm front out there. It's moving our way. Our skies have now turned partly cloudy. As the clouds continue to increase, our temperature will increase. So I think we'll probably have the lowest temperature right now at 12 below, and then we'll start to slowly rise. Now, high temperatures today remain below zero all the way down into the northern part of Iowa, and then extended up to the north and the northeast. And 30-degree temperatures all the way down into Texas. That looks kind of bad for them, but those 30-degree temperatures extend all the way up into Montana to the west of us. That's a warming trend for us, and so we will actually have some of that warmer air move into us, and the temperatures will moderate. You talk about cold, though. Early this morning, as we said, International Falls, a cold spot in the state with 38 degrees below zero. Gordon, Wisconsin, 40 below, and usually Embarrass and Tower, Minnesota, that beat International Falls, could only make it up to around 37 or down to 37 below for an overnight low last night. Well, our high today was 2 below. The low early this morning was 15 below. We're challenging that right now. I don't think we'll make it. I think we'll start to round off and move up now. No precipitation, sunrise and sunset there. For tomorrow, you can see on the bottom of the screen. Our current conditions were partly cloudy with that 12 below reading. 78% humidity, southeast winds at 8, still giving us a wind chill of 31 degrees below zero. Again, winds will remain mostly light through the night. The temperature will begin to rise, and the wind chill shouldn't be much of a factor the rest of the evening. The barometer reading is fairly high, has been higher than that. It's actually falling now from 30.72 inches. Our weather map for tomorrow. It has the warm front moving on to the east of us, high pressure sliding to the east. Still going to have quite a bit of snow and freezing rain down in Texas. The nearest storm to us is out on the west coast. That high pressure is the system that's causing those winds down off California through the mountain passes down there. But as this front moves through, some clouds, maybe a flurry or two tonight into early tomorrow morning, and back into some sunshine and much, much warmer temperatures than we've had over the last couple of days. Now, our highs should warm up into the 20s over most of the state, but there are some 30s, 40s, even some 50s out here to the west. We probably won't see those, but temperatures in the 30s here by the weekend are a strong possibility right now. That'll give us our January thaw. By the weekend, the computer is saying that we should see temperatures 20 to 25, 15 degrees above the normal. And as we said, that for us would put us into the 30s by Sunday. Well, our forecast for tonight, increasing clouds. The low around 11 below, well, it's down to 12 below right now. It should start to level off and move up. A chance of flurries, southeast winds at 5 to 10 miles an hour. Tomorrow, a chance of flurries in the morning, then turning partly sunny, warming up to 20. Southwest winds, though, will become rather gusty, 15 to 30 miles an hour. Now, tomorrow night, partly cloudy, a low of 16, and then all the way up to 33 degrees on Thursday under partly cloudy skies, warmer conditions. The extended outlook keeps that warm air in over us, drops down a little bit, but temperatures remaining near 30 to the mid-30s by Sunday, with the overnight lows out of the single digits and the below zero readings into the teens. I think we've kind of cracked this cold spell anyway, but
boy, I used to think I was hardy, but I saw some people out jogging in this tonight.
Oh, really? Whether it was 12 below?
Yes, 12 below.
Hope they had some protection on them.
I think they did. Thank you, Mike. In just a moment, a protest over plans to hike telephone fees.
And a progress report on a program to help the unemployed in Hennepin County find work and why it isn't working.
We understand there are still a few Minnesotans who haven't discovered the light rock sound of W Light. You're not one of them, are you? Light Rock, less talk. W Light 103 FM.
Need a quality used car? See your Toyota dealer now. Because of last week's successful sales event, he's got a good selection of quality trade-ins priced right to sell fast. Low mileage Toyotas, domestics and other imports, lots of models to choose from. Your Toyota dealers earned a reputation for quality, value, and price. So look to him first for the best value in a used car. And for the best selection, act right now. Your Toyota dealers got it right.
Protests and petitions greeted the Public Utilities Commission today as it took up a proposal to increase phone charges. The Metro Senior Federation presented petitions with 8,000 names to the commission today. That group proposes a request by Northwestern Bell to increase its monthly access charge by $2. They say, added to the other charges, phone customers would end up paying nearly $6 a month just for access. The commission is expected to decide whether to approve that increase by February 26th.
Last year, the state of Minnesota cut the welfare rolls by offering able-bodied people job counseling instead of a handout. In Hennepin County, more than 7,000 people showed up for that counseling, but only about 200 to 700 of them got jobs. Dave Nimmer tried to find out why so few and what happened to the rest of those job seekers.
The problem is not the county's counseling program. It's generally agreed the 30 counselors are upbeat and enthusiastic. The problem is not enough time, money, or training to help people who don't exactly come complete with a workaday background.
By and large, we're dealing with a population that consists of people who have had very erratic to no job employment history.
The county has $150 per person to spend, not enough to land jobs for all those who don't have telephones, a good suit of clothes, or even an alarm clock. The counselors here insist most of their clients want to work and would gladly trade a $201 a month welfare check for a permanent job.
It breaks you down pretty tough because you lose all, you just think everything is against you and nothing is for you. You can't take care of yourself. You can't provide for yourself. Things like that, it's hard on you. You can't buy the clothes you need to keep yourself warm, especially if it's wintertime.
Carruthers will get help in preparing a resume, finding a job opening, and even learning how to present himself for an interview. And for those who need it, there's a phone here where an employer can leave a message for the job seeker.
Hello? Yeah.
It's a start, but counselors say much more is needed.
We need on-the-job training for people and employer incentives.
Work readiness officials argue it would be a wise long-term investment to spend 3 or 4 times as much on job training and counseling. After all, they say, if you don't teach somebody how to deal with a job line, he could well wind up in a food line. With Gordon Bartouche, I'm Dave Nimmer.
And another explanation comes from Hennepin County Commissioner Randy Johnson, who says those cut off welfare left the state, found other means of support, or got a job. And tomorrow, Johnson holds a news conference to talk about what he is calling the myth of the homeless. He says their ranks have not grown, despite frightening predictions from the media that they would. Randy Johnson will claim there are still 100 empty beds in shelters in Minneapolis each and every night.
Ralph John's going to have to take back all those nasty things he said about the North Stars.
I take everything back. It was a great win for the North Stars. They win a game on the road, first time in nearly 3 years, on the island. How sweet it was. A great homecoming for Lauren Henning. We'll have that story and highlights next.
If everyone listened to our light rock at the office, maybe work wouldn't feel so much like work. Light rock, less talk. W Light 103 FM.
On the next edition of Our Magazine.
Cocky and arrogant and, telling network vice presidents to fold it 5 ways and put it where the moon don't shine. And
Dick Cavett joins Gary Collins as Man of the Hour. Discover 5 new games and books that can help protect your child. And more on Eckstein's Puppy Mania on the Next Hour magazine. Wednesday morning at 9 on WCCO television.
Boy, the Stars are really doing great now.
Yes, we're going to take those things back. That's 6 wins out of their last 7 games. You don't often win on the island. And Steve Payne, his return, of course, Lou Nanne said when Steve Payne comes back, maybe the Stars are believing that, huh? They're playing great hockey. 3-2, a win for the Stars over the Islanders. A strong defensive game for Minnesota. And it was a defenseman, Kurt Giles, getting the Stars off on the right foot, or skate, that is. With a goal here in the first period, Giles picks up a rebound, beats Billy Smith on the short side. Then, following a Mike Bossy score by the Islanders, it was Scott Bugstead with his 24th goal of the year. Watch this one. What a season Scott Bugstead is enjoying. That one on a Cicerelli rebound, and Billy Smith is embarrassed. And Stars coach Lorne Henning says this is great against the old mates from the island. Here comes the game winner, Mats Helin, also a former Islander. This is after a 40-foot shot and the tip-in at 4:19 of the third, and the Stars win it by a score, as we said, of 3-2. Around the National Hockey League, there you see the Stars score. St. Louis losing to Quebec 7-4. Washington beat Detroit 4-3. Vancouver and Winnipeg are tied 1-1 in the third. Hartford leading Calgary 2-0 in the second. High school hockey tonight. Second-rated Minnetonka clobbered Coopers 5-1 in that game. The Skippers led 1-0 in the second period. And number 9, Matt Johnson, went to work. He swept in on the right side, beat Cooper's Bruce Almberg between the pads. Second-rated Skippers have only lost once. That was to Hibbing. Tonight, they dominated Cooper, going up 3-0 when Tim Hannes made life easy for Chad Hansen. Tonka went on to win it by a score of 5-1. Other scores, it was Kennedy over Osseo 4-1. Totino Grace beat Eden Prairie 6-3. Cretin shut out St. Paul Academy. St. Cloud Tech over Washburn. High school basketball tonight. Stillwater beating Tartan. Johnson over Humboldt. Hill Murray beat St. Thomas Academy. Harding over Como Park. 8th-rated Minneapolis North Trouble squeaks by 2 over Totino Grace. Hastings over Park of Cottage Grove. Hastings, as we said, the winner. Sibley beat North St. Paul, and South St. Paul a winner 57-47 over White Bear Lake. So long, Schramm. That is what the Twins said today when they traded Ken Schramm and Brian Elkers to the Indians. In exchange for Schramm and Elkers, the Twins get a pair of not-so-notable pitchers in Roy Smith and Ramon Romero. Smith and Romero saw limited action for the Indians last year. And Channel 4 Sports has learned that tomorrow the Twins will announce that longtime assistant farm director Jim Rantz will be promoted to director, replacing George Brophy, who has been ill for several months. Raymond Berry named AFC Coach of the Year today by UPI. That honor comes after Berry led the New England Patriots to an 11-5 regular season record and 2 straight playoff wins. You might recall that Berry was, he was a part-time assistant for the Vikings last year, coaching Les Steckel's wide receivers during the preseason. This year, Berry is the head coach and Steckel is his assistant. The Patriots play Miami Sunday for the AFC Championship. Well, last night, this young man, Pat Kirsch of Waconia, made more money playing basketball than Larry Bird or Magic Johnson. That is if you count money made per shot. Now, Kirsch, a college student at St. Olaf, had his name drawn. He needed to make a layup there, a free throw, a shot from the top of the key, and a mid-court shot to win $10,000. He did it, much to the amazement of the 1,000 in attendance, and we thought we could try it at St. Thomas today, see if he could do it in front of our live audience. And he made the free throw. He got that one. And then he came ever so close as we pick up the play-by-play. And let's take it away, our studio announcer from there. He still has 6 seconds to go. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. There's the shot. It's in the air. And no, he does not make it. But a good try, Pat Kirsch. I'm telling you, I know I didn't get a chance to talk to our general manager, Ron Hanberg, but I know he would have doubled the prize had you made that shot and would have been $20,000. But thank you and congratulations.
Well, thanks again.
Okay, Pat Kirsch, that's it. That's our time from here, and we're going to send it back to our studios. We tried. Thank you, RJ. Okay. All right, close but no cigar. $10,000 richer is Pat Kirsch, who ironically, Mike and Pat, works at Cigna Financial Investment in Edina. And so as an intern there, he'll have plenty of ways to find out how to reinvest that money.
Now, which one is you there, huh? Are you in the box or the real one? Okay.
Looks a lot like me, though, doesn't it?
That was a great event, though. Good for him.
It was, yeah. And I'm sure Ron would have done that. He'd have kicked in another 10 grand, don't you think?
I think so, don't you?
I guess I've known him longer. I don't think so. We have a sports story of sorts that we'd like to wrap up with our newscast tonight. It involves football and Tony Boza. So let's explain. The chief is recruiting minority football players for the police force. The force needs minorities, particularly blacks, and Boza says, why not make them big, tough guys? Gopher football senior Michael Pryor is one of the police recruits, and he has agreed to take the test.
Well, it was like me being recruited all over again.
I don't mean to stand in the way of Super Bowl championships, so we will not recruit Anthony Carter, even if he wanted to come.
One of the recruits is also former Viking Jarvis Redwine.
And guess what? We've learned tonight that another recruit is none other than the refrigerator, William Perry. Yes, the Chicago Bears phenom has indeed been contacted by Chief Boza. And just how would the fridge look in a police hat? Well, there you have it. No refrigerator for us tomorrow. We're coming out of the deep freeze, thank goodness, up to around 20 degrees.
Sounds good. We hope you enjoy the day. Good night, everyone.
Good night.
The 10 p.m. Report with Pat Miles and Don Shelby, Mike Fairborn's weather, and Mark Rosen Sports has been a presentation of WCCO Television, serving the people of the Twin Cities for 4 decades.
A Channel 4 editorial, Minnesota's newsmaker of 1985, with Ron Hanberg.
You'd probably have trouble spelling the name, but by now it's a household word. Gurmasian, as in the brothers, Raphael, Bauman, Eskander, and Nader Gurmasian. They're our choice as Minnesota newsmakers of 1985. The Gurmasian brothers, of course, are the Canadians, originally Iranians, who want to build a mammoth shopping center near the airport in Bloomington. The debate over their mega mall plan has attracted an enormous amount of news coverage. But there's more to this selection than headlines and TV interviews. The Gurmasians are providing us with new insights about ourselves, our politicians, and the nature of change. Governor Perpich jumped at the prospect of new jobs, more tourists, and a Gurmasian-backed cement plant on the Iron Range. But too much enthusiasm cost him some credibility. Bloomington Mayor Lindau fared better. His energetic support of the mega mall and his eventual willingness to compromise may yet bring his city substantial growth and independence. The leaders of St. Paul and especially Minneapolis found themselves on the defensive. The Gurmasians threatened their convention business, retail trade, tax base, and it seemed the very survival of both downtowns. Clearly, the Gurmasians' plan upset the political apple cart. Even now that the mega mall has been scaled down, their proposal is forcing us to rethink how quickly we can handle additional development, forcing us to ask how much public subsidy is proper for private ventures, how many more tourists we can manage without needing bigger and more costly airports and highways. No matter whether you believe their promises, whether you like their style, you have to admit the Gurmasian brothers had a major impact on Minnesota events in 1985. I'm Ron Hanberg.
We offer equal time for an opposing view.
This is Tile Factory Outlet. Hi, I'm Ray Scott. Look at all the beautiful tile. Over 2,100 top quality selections from around the world. Would you believe a tile kitchen floor for less than linoleum? How can Tile Factory Outlet do this? It's easy. They eliminate the middleman with factory direct buying. Believe me, I've shopped, I've compared, and no one beats Tile Factory Outlet for price, selection, and friendly, knowledgeable service.
Tile Factory Outlet has 4 showroom warehouse locations. For the one nearest you, check the white pages under Tile.
Wake up tomorrow to CCO Radio. This is Raj Erickson. We get you up, informed, and feeling fine. Good night.
WCCO Television, Minneapolis, St. Paul.
The Jeffersons will not be seen tonight in order that we might bring you the following special: Minnesota to Moscow, a space bridge.